The first thing my husband packed wasn't diapers. It was his passport. He looked at our 12-day-old daughter screaming in my arms, rubbed his temples, and sighed. The baby's too loud. I need a break. I thought he meant a walk, maybe a hotel for one night. Instead, he boarded a flight to the Maldives with his college friends for an entire month, leaving me alone to survive postpartum recovery and a newborn. 30 days later, he came home smiling like nothing had happened. Then he opened the front door and whispered 6 words that changed his entire life forever. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 30 years old. Until a few weeks ago, I served as a U.S. Army logistics officer, where planning for impossible situations was part of my daily life. Nothing in my military career, however, prepared me for becoming a first-time mother. 12 days after giving birth to our daughter, Lily, my world revolved around sleepless nights, tiny bottles, diaper changes, and learning how to comfort a newborn while my own body was still healing. Every hour felt like a test I desperately wanted to pass. Jason had been excited throughout my pregnancy. He painted the nursery, assembled the crib, and promised we would face parenthood together. But once Lily arrived, reality didn't match the picture he had imagined. Every cry made him tense. Every interrupted night left him irritated. Instead of growing more patient, he became increasingly distant. That morning, Lily had been crying for nearly 20 minutes because of gas pains. I gently rocked her while trying to soothe her tiny body. Jason walked into the living room carrying his suitcase. "I can't do this anymore," he muttered. I looked at the suitcase, confused. "What are you talking about?" He rubbed his forehead. "The baby's too loud. I need a break." I forced a tired smile, assuming he meant a hotel for one night or maybe staying with his brother. Then he looked straight at me. "My friends planned a month in the Maldives. I'm leaving today." I stared at him, certain I had misunderstood. "Jason, I'm 12 days postpartum." "You've always been strong," he replied flatly. "You'll manage." Before I could stop him, he kissed Lily's forehead, grabbed his passport, and walked out the front door, leaving me standing there with our newborn, wondering how the man I married could leave us behind so easily. The first week without Jason felt endless. Days blurred into nights until I couldn't remember the last time I had slept for more than an hour at a time. My body still ached from childbirth. Lily needed constant feedings, and every cry reminded me that there was nobody coming through the front door to take over, even for 10 minutes. On the third morning, my neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, knocked gently after hearing Lily fussing through the wall. She handed me a casserole, smiled warmly, and simply said, "You don't have to do this completely alone." Those words almost made me cry harder than the exhaustion already had. Soon, small acts of kindness began appearing everywhere. A retired pediatric nurse living 2 houses away answered my nervous questions about feeding schedules. 2 military spouses I knew from my old unit organized a meal calendar, so I wouldn't have to worry about cooking. They never treated me like someone to pity. They treated me like someone worth helping. Slowly, I found a rhythm. I learned Lily's different cries, celebrated every peaceful nap, and discovered that confidence grows one difficult day at a time. Meanwhile, Jason's social media filled with crystal-clear beaches, luxury resorts, boat trips, and smiling group photos. One caption read, "Finally enjoying some peace and quiet." I stared at those words for several seconds before quietly closing the app. I didn't send an angry message. I didn't argue. Instead, I unfollowed his account, picked up my daughter, and whispered, "It's you and me, sweetheart." For the first time since he left, I stopped waiting for him to come home and started building a life that didn't depend on him returning. As the second week turned into the third, something unexpected happened. I stopped measuring every day by Jason's absence and started measuring it by Lily's milestones. She began sleeping a little longer, opened her eyes whenever she heard my voice, and rewarded me with tiny expressions that felt like victories. Every smile wasn't quite intentional yet, but each peaceful moment reminded me that we were finding our rhythm. One evening, an old Army colleague named Rebecca called after hearing about my situation through mutual friends. She had recently launched a small consulting firm helping better-known businesses with logistics planning and branding. She asked whether I would consider remote design consulting since she remembered how often I created presentations and marketing materials during deployments. The flexible work would let me stay home with Lily while rebuilding my career. I accepted before fear could change my mind. Late one night, while feeding Lily beside the nursery window, I realized I no longer missed Jason. I missed the husband I believed I had married. Those were not the same person. Jason rarely answered my video calls. When he did, he kept conversations under a minute before saying he was busy sightseeing or boarding another excursion. His messages became shorter until they felt like notifications from a stranger. By the end of the month's third week, I understood something simple. His vacation had become more than distance. It had become a choice. And every day he stayed away, he quietly chose island sunsets over the first chapter of his daughter's life, without looking back. Exactly 30 days after he left, Jason texted me from the airport. Landing in 2 hours. Can't wait to see you girls. I read the message without replying. By then, my days no longer revolved around waiting for him. Lily had settled into a gentle routine. The house was clean, bottles were prepared, laundry was folded, and for the first time since becoming a mother, I felt calm instead of overwhelmed. Late that afternoon, I heard a key slide into the front door. Jason stepped inside carrying 2 expensive shopping bags, a suitcase, and an easy smile. His face was sunburned from weeks on tropical beaches. He looked around as though expecting to find the exhausted woman he had abandoned. Instead, he found a peaceful home. I was sitting in the living room feeding Lily. She looked healthy, alert, and content. I stood, greeted him politely, then returned my attention to our daughter. You did all this?" he asked quietly. "I did," I answered. He smiled with visible relief and reached out to hold Lily. "Come here, sweetheart. Daddy's home." The moment she left my arms, her tiny face tightened. Within seconds, she began crying and stretched both little hands back toward me. Instinctively, I took her again. The crying stopped almost immediately. Jason stood frozen, staring at us. "I thought she'd recognize me," he whispered. I looked at him with quiet honesty. "She recognizes the person who's been here every single day." His shoulders slowly dropped. For the first time since packing that suitcase, the reality finally reached him. He hadn't simply missed a vacation from parenting. He had missed the first month of his daughter's life, and no souvenir or apology could ever give those precious moments back. Jason sat across from me at the kitchen table after Lily finally fell asleep. The colorful gift bags from the Maldives still rested unopened near the front door. They suddenly looked painfully out of place inside a home that had survived without them. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I was overwhelmed. I just needed time to clear my head." I folded my hands together and met his eyes. "I understand feeling overwhelmed," I replied. "I've been overwhelmed every single day since Lily was born." He lowered his gaze. "You left me 12 days after childbirth," I continued calmly. "While I was healing, learning to breastfeed, barely sleeping, and wondering if I was doing anything right." "I know." "No," I said gently. "You know you left. You don't know what you missed." I told him about Lily falling asleep on my chest for the first time. The tiny sounds she made before smiling in her sleep. The evening she finally stopped crying after hours of colic because I refused to give up rocking her. Every memory carried both joy and heartbreak because the person who should have shared them had chosen not to be there. Jason covered his face with both hands. "I thought I could make it up when I got back." I slowly shook my head. Parenthood doesn't pause while someone takes a vacation. Silence filled the room. Finally, I spoke again. "If you truly want to rebuild this family, don't ask me to trust your words." I looked toward Lily's nursery. "Show her your actions. Every single day. That's the only way either of us will ever believe you again." The days after our conversation looked nothing like the month before. Jason stopped talking about how guilty he felt and started asking what needed to be done. Every evening, he came straight home from work without excuses. He learned how to warm bottles properly, change diapers without asking for help, and soothe Lily when she became restless in the middle of the night. One Saturday morning, he surprised me by suggesting we attend a parenting class together. "I don't want to keep guessing," he admitted. I want to learn. It was the first time since Lily was born that his words matched his actions. We also began meeting with a family counselor once a week. Those sessions weren't easy. Jason had to face uncomfortable truths about avoiding responsibility whenever life became difficult. I had to admit how deeply abandoned I had felt the day he walked away. Trust didn't return overnight. Some evenings I still caught myself wondering whether he would leave again the moment life became stressful. But I also noticed something different. He stayed. Meanwhile, my remote consulting work continued growing, giving me confidence that I could support Lily no matter what the future held. That independence changed something inside me. I wasn't rebuilding our marriage because I needed someone to rescue me. I was choosing carefully whether Jason deserved another chance. For the first time in our relationship, he understood that forgiveness wasn't automatic. It was something earned quietly through ordinary days, consistent choices, and showing up when it mattered most. Looking back now, I sometimes think about the woman I was 12 days after giving birth. Exhausted, frightened, and convinced I couldn't survive without the man who promised to stand beside me. I was wrong about one thing. I was stronger than I ever imagined. Whether Jason and I continue growing together will depend on thousands of ordinary decisions, not one emotional apology. Every diaper changed, every sleepless night shared, every promise kept matters more than expensive vacations or beautiful speeches ever could. One evening, I stood quietly outside Lily's room and watched Jason rock her gently after another long day. She rested peacefully against his shoulder, completely trusting the arms holding her. He looked up, saw me smiling softly, and smiled back before returning his attention to our daughter. That simple moment meant more than any souvenir he had brought home. It reminded me that families are not built by grand gestures. They're built by showing up. If this story has taught me anything, it's that love isn't measured by what people say when life is easy. It's measured by who stays when life becomes difficult. Real family doesn't run from responsibility or treat someone else's pain as an inconvenience. The people who truly love you won't always be perfect, but they'll choose to be present. And sometimes, that choice becomes the greatest gift anyone can ever give another human being.